Abraham Michael Richer, also known as Satan, of River Lane, Grove, St. John, passed away on Friday 7th April 2023 at the age of 71. He was the father of Desra Gill, Nicole Joseph, Rhaenyra and Tara Banfield, grandfather of Kimberly and Kimber Modeste in the USA, Genesis Joseph, Cedric Marquez, Kimya Ashton, Cassidy and Madison Gill, brother of Lorna Rochelle Lewis in the UK, uncle of Sandra, Donna, Derek, Bernard, Ingrid, Felix Crow, Jimmy and Carl Crow, father-in-law of Michael Ashton and Swan Barry. Other relatives and friends including Elvin Rush, Dr. Gillian Thomas, Michelle Ashton, Shawnita and Kinder Ambrose, Twinkle, Godson Brown, Rocco, Deslin, Sheila Ambrose, Alorna Marquez, and friends and neighbours of Grove, St. John. The funeral of the late Abraham Michael Richer, also known as Satan, of River Lane, Grove, St. John, will take place on Friday, May 5th at 1 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the St. Peter's R.C. Church, Grove, and interment will be at the Douglaston Cemetery. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. J. Dean Emmons Bartholomew of Happy Hill, who resided at Montparnasse St. George, owner of J&J Printers, passed away on Wednesday, April 5th, 2023, at the age of 36. She was the mother of Jaden, Jalen, and Jayla Bartholomew, daughter of Gloria Emmons, sister of Andre Celestine in the USA, Patrick and Natasha Celestine, Karina Henry, Erlen, Lindy, Kendra, and Judd Emmons, aunt of 5, niece of many, sister-in-law of Stephanie Romaine and Yolande Hamilton in the U.S., Alicia Emmons, and Shade Henry in Grenada, cousin of many including Dr. Patrick Antwine and Ordine Searles in Trinidad, Kevin Sylvester in the USA, Dwight Celestine, Rennie Harris, Sally Ann, Nixon and family, Barbara Sandy and family, Jeremy Scott and family, the Sylvester family, and the Hyacinth family of Brazan. Many other family and friends including the Bartholomew family of Happy Hill, the Celestine family of Mount Tranquil, the Emmons family of Grenada and in Carriacou, the pastor and members of CCW, Miss Margaret Roberts, Dr. the Right Honourable Keith Mitchell, Senator Jonathan Lecrette, the staff of J&J Printers, and friends and neighbours of Montparnasse, Happy Hill and surrounding areas. The funeral of the late J. Dean Emmons Bartholomew of Happy Hill, who resided at Montparnasse St. George, will take place on Friday, May 5th at 1 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the Happy Hill Open Bible Church, and entombment will be at the Top Fence Cemetery. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home. Clinton Cosmos Alexander of Parade and Laborie St. George, who resided in the United States of America, passed away on Sunday 9th April 2023 in the USA, at the age of 88. He was the brother of Robert in Trinidad and Sylvester, also known as Jerry in Canada, adopted brother of Hillary in Canada, Kessler in the UK, Leonard and Jeffrey in Grenada, brother-in-law of Grace in Grenada and Ingrid in Canada, uncle of Desmond and Brian in Trinidad, Pamela, Brian, Samuel and Carol in Canada, Richard and Caroline in the UK, and Steve in Grenada. Several cousins including Alma, Denise, Hazelan, Casti in Grenada, Gillian in the USA, and many others too numerous to mention. Several godchildren including godson Keyshawn in the USA. Other relatives the Worm, Sandyford, Park, Jellino, Braffett, Burke and Charles families of Laborie and in the United Kingdom. Many dear friends including Dennis and Denise Phillip in Grenada. The Thanksgiving service for the late Clinton Cosmos Alexander of Parade and Laborie St. George, who resided in the USA, will take place on Saturday, May 6th at 11 a.m. Funeral service will be held at Riverside Church, Manhattan, New York City, USA, and a memorial service will be held in Grenada at a later date. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home. Francis Anthony Lead, also known as the Mighty Footsie, of Birchgrove St. Andrew, who resided in the USA, passed away on Monday, 3rd October 2022, at the age of 74. He is survived by his wife Agatha Bowen Lead. He was the father of Evan Alexis, Kellen Rubin, Earl Cummins in Grenada, Daisha Gani in Trinidad, Ron Lead, Ricky and Tanisha Lead in the USA. Grandfather and great-grandfather of Lasana, Janaya, RJ, Eric, Dorian, Latoni, and Madison in the USA, Tristan, Giovanni, Tyler, Rikael, Amaya, Marvin, Michaela, Maya and Caden in Grenada, and Mariah in Trinidad. Brother of Mary, Gloria and Victor in the USA, Joycelyn in Trinidad, Diana, Ennis, Kenny, and Fabian in Grenada. Other relatives and close friends, too numerous to mention, including neighbors of the Birch Grove community and surrounding areas. The burial of the ashes of the late Francis Anthony Lead, also known as the Mighty Footsie of Birch Grove St. Andrew, who resided in the USA, will take place on Monday, May 8th at 2 p.m. at the St. Rose Cemetery, Adelphi, Birch Grove, St. Andrew. Arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home.
Troy Wilton Nichols of Spring St. George, who resided in New York, passed away on Thursday, 28 April, at the age of 44. Left to mourn are his wife, Michelle Andel Nichols, children, Michaela and Tree Nichols, parents, Joseph and Rosanna Nichols, siblings, Andrew, Christopher, and Nicholas Nichols in the USA, Dr. Debbie Nichols in Grenada, mother-in-law of Eulyn Andel Edwards, father-in-law, Michael Edwards, grandmother-in-law, Anastasia Andel, sister-in-law, Kyra Ferguson, brothers-in-law, Kerry Ferguson and Chris Andel, many nieces and nephews including Maya, Haley, Andrew and Matthew Nichols in the USA, aunts, Mavis Batiste and Bernadette Griffith, uncle, McFord Williams, close friends, Curtis John, many cousins including Lorenzo Griffith, many other relatives and friends including the Nichols, Andel, Griffith, Holder and Weeks families, friends and neighbors of Springs, Tebeke and surrounding areas. The funeral service and interment of the late Troy Wilton Nichols of Spring St. George, who resided in New York, will take place in New York on the 7th and 8th of May 2023. Funeral arrangements have been entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home. Deanne Elizabeth Cox of Wynwood, Carriacou, passed away on Monday, 24th April, at the age of 43. She was the wife of Nolan Cox, mother of Nyosha, Naomi, Darren, and Darrell Cox, daughter of Lloyd and Eunice Davidson, sister of Debbie, Lydia, Samantha, Indeve, and Lloyd, mother-in-law of Catherine Cox, sister-in-law of 16 including Stephen McDonnell, Kenny Lewis, and Joan Davidson, niece of Margaret, also known as Addie, Lucin, Lucy, Patsy, Dorothy, Moritha, Antoinette, Alice, Donette, Louis, Louise, and Davis, aunt of Che, Siobhan, Shireen, Kalia, Nia, Colleen, Cadell, Danaya, Johaida, Jayla, and Myron, godmother of 6, goddaughter of Celia Bethel and Rhonda McLawrence, close cousin of many including Keisha, Nikisha, Vanessa, David, Limal, Simon, and Jurian, close friends of many including Stacy and Washington and family, Marcia Kwashi, Dexter Lagarde and family, Schofield Coy and family, Mr. and Mrs. Dennis Joseph, Junior Mitchell, Nicholas Cox and family, Jenny Noel and family, Anne McLawrence, Shortman and Yvette, Marcus and Desiree Simon, and Richard McQuilkin. Many other relatives and close friends including Davidson and Cox families, Nicole Cox and family, Junior McDonald, Rona Compton and family, Sherry Lewis, Verdon Stafford and family, Caroline and Curl, Nemi Scott, Stephanie and Twine and family, Charles, Bethel and Noel families of Wynwood and Orangevale, matron, doctors and nurses and staff of Princess Royal Hospital, members of Carriacou Cancer Society, and the staff of Beacon Insurance, friends and neighbors of Wynwood and surrounding areas too numerous to mention. The funeral of the late Dian Elizabeth Cox of Windward Carriacou will take place on Tuesday, 9th May at 12:30 p.m. at St. Peter's and Paul Roman Catholic Church, Windward Carriacou, and the interment will be at the Black Rock Cemetery, Windward Carriacou. Funeral arrangements have been entrusted to Lacroix Brothers Funeral Home.
Mary Maguire, also known as Elsa Lewis of New Hampshire St. George, a well-known vendor at the Grenville Market, passed away on Saturday, 8th April 2023, at the age of 85. She is survived by her children Isaiah, also known as Zaka, Ezekiel, Catherine, and John, also known as Eyes. Siblings Charles, Skelly, Leon, Marlon residing in Trinidad, and Julietha residing in the USA. 9 grandchildren: Decima, Abby, Donnell, Fona, Vernessa, Caberta, Selena, John Jr., and Kayla. 11 great-grandchildren, including Jaden. Many nieces and nephews: Roxanne in Canada, Claire, Helen, Roland, Beresford, Altus, Carolyn, Christopher, Sharon, Ivo, and Joshua. Many other relatives and friends, including the Lewis and McBurney families of New Hampshire, the Louison and Maguire families of Concord, Janet Louison and family, Linda, Christine, Rita, Elizabeth, also known as Ona, Lucy Wildman, Beverly Daniel, Julia, Zarhilda, and other relatives and family of New Hampshire, too numerous to mention. The funeral of the late Mary Maguire, also known as Elsa Lewis of New Hampshire St. George, will take place on Tuesday, May 9th at 1:30 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the Our Lady Queen of Peace, Constantine St. George, and interment will be at the Family Cemetery, New Hampshire. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home. Christine Niles Langine of Laton St. David, who resided at River Road, St. George, passed away on Thursday, April 20th, 2023, at the age of 78. She was the mother of Vennie Noel in the USA, Nigel Noel, Shaniel Gibbs, and Desmond Noel in Grenada. Stepmother of Junior McNeil in Carriacou, Sandra Langine and Samson Charles in Grenada, and Bevan Abraham in the USA. Grandmother of Kevin McEwen, Mark Noel Hernandez, Jamie and Jamal Charles, Monique Sylvester, Jaden Noel, Shanika Gibbs, Corey and Danisha Noel. Great-grandmother of Kelisa, Kavisha, Kayla, Karaji and KJ McEwen, Neva, Melody, and Josiah Noel. Sister of Millicent Release Haynes in Trinidad and Rosa Niles in Grenada. Niece of Jean and Anastasia Jeffrey. Sister-in-law of Thelma Moore Redhead, Jacqueline Moore Belfon, Glennis Moore, and Keith Tallisford. Mother-in-law of Curtis Gibbs and Debbie McEwen. Aunt of 40, including Orslyn Holder, Alison Victor, Gillian Caffey, Sherwin Sean Modeste, Hazel Lewis Spanaway, and Gemma Fraser in Trinidad, Nesta Louison, Anselm Niles, Mary Modeste, Mary Francis, Selma Caffey, Edward Niles, Muriel Felix, Terry and Rona Niles. Godmother of Kelly and St. Bernard and Gaynor Smith. Many cousins, other relatives and close friends, including Marva Charles, Gillian Phillip, Irma Francis, Margaret Roberts, Wilma Smith, Dennis Bartholomew, Catherine Neri Sylvester, Joanna Livingston, Barbell, Mother Wilma and Shepherd Albert, Meralda Paul, traffickers and vendors at the St. George's Market Square, members of the Mount Paran Spiritual Baptist Church, the Niles family of St. David, New Hampshire, Chantimel, and in Trinidad, the USA and Canada, the Jeffrey family of St. David, the Noel and Langine families, and friends and neighbors of Latente and River Road. The funeral of the late Christine Niles Langine of Latente St. David, who resided at River Road, St. George, will take place on Tuesday, May 9th at 12:30 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the Garden of Remembrance Funeral Chapel, Cemetery Hill, St. George's, according to Spiritual Baptist rites, and entombment will be at the St. George's Cemetery. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacroix Brothers Funeral Home.
Cicely Teresa Johnson, née Mark, also known as Tanti of Bellevue St. David, past teacher of the Corinth Government School and retired nurse of the National Orthopedic Hospital in Virginia, USA, passed away on Thursday, 28 April 2023 in the USA at the age of 83. She was the mother of Dale Lashley, Clifton and Alvin Johnson in the USA, grandmother of Brittany, Jamal, Tyrell, Clifton Jr., Calvin, Devin, and Maya in the USA, great-grandmother of Nevia, Micah, Ava, Ariana, Autumn, and Princeton in the USA, aunt of Shoma and Kenrick Noel, grand-aunt of 14 including Tamis Noel, Dante Joseph, Tyrell, and Brenda, great-grand-aunt of 7 including Tristan Noel, mother-in-law of Keith Jones, Tonisha, and Deborah Johnson in the USA. Many other relatives and friends including Emmanuel Thomas, also known as Mancini, and father, Frank and Rosalind Jeremiah, Eric Alexander, Esmond Francis, Francis St. John, Josephine McQuilkin, Zita Monroe, Florel McQuilkin, Gwen Caesar, Cynthia Mark, Jean James, Sean Thomas, Jerry Williams, Tony Coffey, Detective Damian Frank, the Regis, Mark McQuilkin, Thomas and Bean families of St. David and St. Andrew, parishioners of the Church of the Immaculate Conception, St. David, and friends and neighbors of Bellevue, St. David, and surrounding areas. A memorial service for the late Cicely Teresa Johnson, née Mark, also known as Tanty of Bellevue, St. David, will be held on Tuesday, 9th May at 1 p.m. at the Church of the Immaculate Conception and St. Joseph, St. David, followed by interment of the ashes at the St. David's Catholic Cemetery. Funeral arrangements have been entrusted to Lockwell Brothers Funeral Home.
Phyllis Bernadine Williams, née Francis of Vendham, who resided at Beaulieu St. George, passed away on Saturday, 22nd April 2023 at the age of 94. She was the mother of Dominic, Gaston and Simeon in the USA, Cuthbert, Louis and Louise in Grenada, sister of Marita Modeste in the USA, Monica and Christopher Francis in Canada, grandmother of Dominic Jr., Desiree, Ashley, Christopher, Nicholas, Dwight, Faye, Dwayne, Lugene, Angel, Leon, Leonard, Simone, Ariana, Ryan, and Rice, great-grandmother of Madison, Prudence, and Lucas, sister-in-law of Wilma, Marcia, Anthea, and Louisa Francis, mother-in-law of Megon, Winifred, Florence and Dawn Williams, and Douglas Noel. Many nieces and nephews, including the Modeste, Francis, Edwards, Campbell, and Mitchell children abroad, the Francis, Harford, and Bartholomew children in Grenada, caregivers and doctors, Dr. Alejandro Miguel and Dr. Sonia Nixon, Maggie Sanchez, Brenda Scott, Adis, and Irva James. Many other relatives and friends, including Father Leroy Hopkin, the Francis family of Vendham, the Williams family in London, New Jersey, and the Turks and Caicos Islands, the Cobb family of Beaulieu and in the USA, Glenroy Johnson and family, Maureen Williams, Gemma Francis, Daniel Strawn and family, the Purcell and Nixon families, the Holder family in the USA, the James family of Beaulieu and in the USA, the Dolland family, Mr. and Mrs. Fitzroy Williams, Christopher Penny, Cecil Greenidge, Terrell Charles, Annette Augustine, Derek James, Father Sean Duggart and parishioners, and friends and neighbors of Beaulieu and surrounding areas. The funeral of the late Phyllis Bernadine Williams, née Francis of Vendham, who resided at Beaulieu St. George, will take place on Wednesday, May 10th at 1 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the Beaulieu RC Church, and entombment will be at the Vendham Cemetery. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home.
Cyril Nelson, also known as Toxie of Mount Royal, Carriacou, passed away on Friday, 14th April in New York at the age of 78. He was the husband of Olga Nelson, father of Agnes, also known as Yulin, Sonia, Daniel, Neil, Simon, and Makisha, grandfather of Kevon, Donald, Max, Denisha, Daryl, Anika, Dylan, Rebecca, Elisha, Malachi, Darian, Neela, and Darnell, great-grandfather of Nathan, Angel, Cariel, and Samira, father-in-law of Bean, Edwin, and Melin, brother of Ronald, Paula, Louise, Joan, Godwin, Selwyn, Nicholas, Roslyn, and Darren. Nephew of Sylvia Coy, Gertrude Phillip, Vernice Otter, and Dunstan Lawrence. Brother-in-law of Iolina Shade, Josephine Alexis, Laffy St. Louis, Alma Roberts, Alcina Chase, Verolyn Adams, Alverna Mackenzie, and Lorna McIntosh. Many other relatives and friends including the Lawrence and Andrew families, the Nelson family of Six Roads, friends and neighbors of Mount Royal, Top Hill, and surrounding areas. The funeral service of the late Cyril Nelson, also known as Toxie of Mount Royal, Carriacou, will be held on Wednesday, 10th May at 2 p.m. at the Hillsborough Catholic Church, Carriacou, and the interment will be at the Brunswick Cemetery. Funeral arrangements have been entrusted to Lacroix Brothers Funeral Home. Desmond Livingston Hagley, also known as Eckstein and Redman of Tibaid St. David, passed away on Friday, 21st April, at the age of 62. He was a brother of Shirley, Vangie, Susie, Alice, and Daisy and Dennis Livingston, nieces and nephews including Joan Livingston Whiteman, Lucia Livingston Andel, Helen Livingston, Gina, Makiba, Tasha, Shamin, Keisha, Nicole, Dino Livingston, and Karim Andel. Cousins including Yvonne, Mary, and Dexter Livingston. Finba Isaac, the Isaac family of Tibaid. Other relatives and friends including friends and neighbors of Tibaid and surrounding areas. Desmond Livingston Hagley, also known as Eckstein and Redman of Tibaid St. David, will take place on Friday, 12 May at 2 p.m. at the St. David's Roman Catholic Church, and the interment will be at the St. David Catholic Cemetery. Funeral arrangements have been entrusted to Lacroix Brothers Funeral Home. Veronica Evelyn McNeely, also known as Miss Mark or Mama of Grandsborough St. Andrew, passed away on Sunday, 30th April, at the age of 102. The funeral arrangements of the late Veronica Evelyn McNeely of Grandsborough St. Andrew will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements have been entrusted to Lacroix Brothers Funeral Home. Agatha Theresa Registi, also known as Auntie Mammy, Aunt Antonica of Grandroy St. John, who resided in the UK, passed away on Monday, 17th April, at the age of 82. The funeral arrangements of the late Agatha Theresa Registi, also known as Auntie Mammy, Aunt Antonica of Grandroy St. John, who resided in the UK, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements have been entrusted to Lacroix Brothers Funeral Home.
Benedict Chambers, also known as Frank, Kakaya, and Captain of Grandroy St. John, passed away on Saturday, 29th April 2023 at the age of 80. The funeral arrangements for the late Benedict Chambers, also known as Frank, Kakaya, and Captain of Grandroy St. John, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacroix Brothers Funeral Home.
Gerald McMeo, also known as Brady of Windsor Forest St. David, passed away on Saturday, 29th April, at the age of 67. The funeral arrangements of the late Gerald McMeo, also known as Brady of Windsor Forest St. David, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements have been entrusted to Lacroix Brothers Funeral Home.
Neville Darius Moses Caliste, also known as Chalku of Mount Fanhope St. Andrew, passed away on Friday, 28th April 2023 at the age of 95. The funeral arrangements for the late Neville Darius Moses Caliste, also known as Chalku of Mount Fanhope St. Andrew, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacroix Brothers Funeral Home. Efani Chedu Timothy Alexander, also known as Chedu and Max, of Village Road, Grenville St. Andrew, who resided in the USA, passed away on Thursday, April 20th, 2023, in Houston, Texas, USA, at the age of 32. The funeral arrangements for the late Efani Chedu Timothy Alexander, also known as Chedu and Max, of Village Road, Grenville St. Andrew, who resided in the USA, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Cyril Joseph, also known as Charm Bay and Jimmy, of Lassager St. David, passed away on Tuesday, 25th April 2023, at the age of 63. The funeral arrangements for the late Cyril Joseph, also known as Charm Bay and Jimmy, of Lassager St. David, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home.
Arnold Frederick, also known as Woodnose and Salopwee, of Marley St. Patrick, passed away on Friday, 21st April, at the age of 59. The funeral arrangement of the late Arnold Frederick, also known as Woodnose and Salopwee, of Marley St. Patrick, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements have been entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home.
Ashley Ned, also known as Ned of Grosse Pointe St. Mark, passed away on Thursday, April 20th, 2023, at the age of 71. The funeral arrangements for the late Ashley Ned, also known as Ned, of Grosse Pointe St. Mark, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Donald Augustine Bartholomew, also known as Caliste and Swales, of Munich, who resided at Grand Bachelet St. Andrew, passed away on Monday, 17th April 2023, at the age of 72. The funeral arrangements for the late Donald Augustine Bartholomew, also known as Caliste and Swales, of Munich, who resided at Grand Bachelet St. Andrew, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Anthony St. Paul, also known as Sky Grease and Tony, of Mount Granby St. John, who resided at Brazan St. George, a well-known truck driver, passed away on Wednesday, 19th April 2023, at the age of 56. The funeral arrangements for the late Anthony St. Paul, also known as Sky Grease and Tony, of Mount Granby St. John, who resided at Brazan St. George, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home.
The management and staff of MTV extend deepest condolences to those of you whose loved ones have passed on. Thank you for watching.
Death and dying are the inevitable events and realities of life. The passing of a friend or loved one often brings with it the feelings of sadness, grief, and pain. There is always the period of sorrow and mourning for those who experience such loss. Brothers and sisters, particularly in this time and season of how you feel and what you may be thinking as a result of the passing of your loved one, there is a source and means of comfort that you can tap into. That source and means of comfort is God and His Word that speaks specifically and directly to our situation. Hear the word to you today. He says, "Blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted." What I believe He is saying through this verse to you and everyone that is now experiencing some measure of grief or sorrow, and what I also believe is implied in that which He says, are the following. Mourning is an understandable, normal, and real expression of your emotions. Mourning presents the opportunity for us to experience the comfort of family, friends, and loved ones. Mourning identifies us with each other in our humanity and morality. Mourning will not last forever. It is for a particular season and reason. Mourning connects us with the ultimate source and means of comfort that is always available to us, God, our Heavenly Father, through Jesus Christ. And so today, we look to the Lord in prayer, Him who is able to comfort us with the comfort that we need in times like these. God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, God of comfort, we pray even now for those who mourn and are in need of your comfort. May your love embrace them. May your grace afford them the strength for each day and hope for tomorrow. May you inspire and motivate them to stand upon the promises of your word. And may your Spirit lead and direct them to the ultimate source and means of comfort, which can be found in you and the promises of your word. This prayer we offer through Jesus Christ our Lord.